Fellas, I'm going to be matchmaking every single main card fighter after UFC 298 now. Some say it was a depressing card, some say a lot of people should have retired, so win or loss, I'm matchmaking every fighter. You guys seem to like the one I did for UFC 296, so I'm doing it again. Yeah, let's not waste any time. First fight on the main card, Anthony Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov. Hernandez looked good in that fight, out-grappled Roman Kopylov pretty comfortably as well. Roman Kopylov's takedown defense was alright at times, but then eventually got taken down and submitted. I think it was the second round by Hernandez. Dominant win for Hernandez, and this guy's looking to be a real problem in the division. But I'll start off with Roman Kopylov since he's the loser. I want to see Roman Kopylov. A lot of people are saying he got fraud checked, right? I want to see him versus another prospect. I want to see Roman Kopylov versus Sharaputtin Magomedov. Both of these guys are insane strikers, powerful, super speedy. This would be an absolute spectacle to see on the feet. I did match them up against each other in my in the video that I did not long ago where I talked about, you know, replacement fights, but this would be a banger of a fight. You've got Sharaputtin Magomedov, a 12-0 kickboxer who, I mean, we just saw him against Bruno Silva at UFC 294. It was insane. Sharaputtin Magomedov is insane when it comes to striking. And then we've got Roman Kopylov as well, the guy who was on a streak previously. Yeah, he might have just lost to Anthony Hernandez, which is no shame. But before the Hernandez fight, you got to remember, this guy was on a 4-fight winning streak, all by way of knockout. Both of them are insane kickboxers. I want to see Sharaputtin Magomedov versus roided up Chase Hooper, and I feel like that would be a banger of a fight. And then for Anthony Hernandez, the winner. Listen, it was a dominant win, and I think he's already ranked 15 anyway. He's definitely going to have to fight further up in the rankings. I wouldn't mind seeing an Anthony Hernandez take out Roman Delit. Obviously, we just saw Roman Delit. He just got absolutely battered. I didn't get absolutely battered, but he got beaten by Imavov, and before that, it was Vettori. Delit is still a fairly dangerous fighter. He's beaten people like Jack Hermansson by finishing Jack Hermansson in the past. He's still a dangerous fighter. Also pretty well-rounded as well, so I feel like it's a great fight for Anthony Hernandez to kind of test his skills against a dangerous opponent, but not someone who's on an absolute streak because he's on a 2-fight losing streak. And if Hernandez can get past Delit, that's where we're going to start to see like Hernandez against guys like, you know, Jack Hermansson and other grapplers in the division, which is going to be really fun. So that's my matchmaking for the first fight. Hernandez should fight, in my opinion, Delit, and then obviously Kopylov versus Sharaputtin Magomedov. Next fight on the card, it was Merab versus Henry Cejudo. I can't believe this was so low down on the card. I thought this was like a co-main event worthy fight. Like, you've got the #1 contender fight practically between two high-level bantamweights. I'm surprised this wasn't a #1 contender fight, but Merab and Henry Cejudo. We'll start off with the loser with Henry Cejudo. I think he should retire. Yeah, I mean, he didn't look horrendous in the fight. I actually think he won a round against Merab. He didn't get embarrassed or anything like that, but Merab was just dominant, and he's now on a 2-fight losing streak to Sterling and Merab, and I just don't think he needs to stick around anymore. He's had this massive legacy that he's left behind. There's no need to stick around any longer to fight Merab. It's just not, well, he's already fought Merab, but there's no need to stick around any longer. You're not going to win a belt. He said before that he's going to retire if he doesn't beat Merab, and I completely agree. Henry Cejudo, you've got a legacy behind you. Just retire from the sport at this point. We don't need to see him back. And then for Merab, instant title shot. Well, obviously we've got Marlon Vera versus O'Malley for the belt, and then immediately after that, Merab's next in line. I mean, it was always a case of whether it's going to be Merab or Sandhagen next, and no disrespect to Sandhagen. Listen, he's beaten the current title challenger in Marlon Vera and Rob Font, but I feel like Merab getting a win over Yan, and obviously just getting a win over Cejudo, is a much more intriguing wins to you know, promote him to for the belt. So let's do Merab versus the winner of O'Malley and what's his name, fucking Marlon Vera. It needs to happen. Merab's a fucking machine, and I think he has what it takes to beat both of those guys. Merab's a future champion. Let's see Merab versus the winner of O'Malley and Marlon Vera. Next fight, Jeff Neal and Ian Garry. Yeah, a very, very close fight. Not the most high-action fight. It was a very kind of point fighty type of fight. Neither of them got seriously hurt in the fight, which we were expecting to happen, especially from Jeff Neal. Start off with a loser in Jeff Neal. Now, Jeff Neal, listen, he was against Ian Garry. It was against Ian Garry, right? There's no shame in losing to an undefeated, contender now in Ian Garry. So I'm not going to sit here and say that it was a terrible loss, and it was really close as well. I think we should do Jeff Neal versus Rinat. Now, Rinat is a kind of a new prospect in the welterweight division. He's the guy that absolutely brutalized Kevin Lee, and he's just floating around the rankings. He is coming off a draw, and a lot of people say he got fraud checked in that fight. And if we're going to push this guy, I want to see him tested. I've heard people say that this guy's a future champion. If we're really putting claims out that like that out there, I want to see this guy versus Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal can face another prospect, potentially shut down this prospect. He definitely has the capability to do so. So let's do Rinat Ignat versus Jeff Neal. And then for Ian Gary, I've got 2 fights for him. The first fight is Colby Covington. Now, obviously, he called out Colby Covington, and I feel like that is the match between the 2 most disliked guys in the division. Big win for Ian Gary as well. It possibly gives him a title fight if he beats Covington as well. So Ian Gary versus Covington, stick it on like a McGregor co-main event or anything like that, or just put it on a pay-per-view. I'm sure the build-up to that fight would be insane. The press conference and obviously the fight. You've got Colby Covington versus Ian Gary. Obviously, Ian Gary's toughest test yet. So Ian Gary versus Colby Covington, I want to see that. And the second fight I've got for him is because obviously Covington, he's not the most trustworthy guy. I'm not sure if he's actually going to take a fight with Ian Gary. The next fight is Jack Della Maddalena if he beats Gilbert Burns. He's obviously not going to fight Gilbert Burns as Ian Gary because they're friends. But if JDM beats Burns, it's going to get to the point when we've got JDM, Ian Gary, Shavkat and Bilal all as contenders in the welterweight division. We need to cut the line short. JDM versus Ian Gary would be a striking, an insane striking matchup. Let's see it. Not Jeff Neal. I keep mixing the names up here. Ian Gary versus JDM or Colby Covington. I'm happy with both of those matchups. Co-main event. Robert Whitaker versus Paulo Costa. Now, obviously, it was actually a decent fight. Costa nearly finished Whitaker in the first round, and I actually thought he would, and then obviously the round stopped. But for Paulo Costa, he looked good in that fight. I'm not going to say he didn't. Paulo Costa looked pretty good in that fight. Wasn't a shameful loss or anything like that. It's a good win for Costa. I think we should do Costa versus Imavov. And I know a lot of people have been saying the Khamzat Chimaev matchup, but I don't think that's a smart decision from a business perspective because Costa, like I said, the guy looked insane. That was the best we've ever seen Costa, in my opinion, against Robert Whitaker there. And I think we need to give him a fight that's winnable for him. And I think Imavov is a winnable fight. He's coming off a good win over Roman Delit, so it's promotable for the both of them. But he's also obviously lost to Sean Strickland in the past last year. I want to see Imavov versus Paulo Costa. Might not be the most, promotable fight on paper, but it's a good win for Paulo Costa to get back in the groove. He's lost to Vettori, he's lost to Whitaker, he's lost to Adesanya, he's practically lost to everyone at the top level. Let's bring it down a little bit. Let's give him a slightly not easier opponent, but lower level opponent in Imavov. And that'll be a great fight, especially because Imavov's coming off a win over Delidze as well. Costa versus Imavov, let's see it. And then for Whitaker, I want to see Jared Cannonier versus Robert Whitaker too. Obviously, we saw this a few years ago. Robert Whitaker put a beating on Jared Cannonier, dominant win, but I feel like it's the perfect time to do it. Again, there's a kind of a problem with the middleweight division that there's too many contenders similar to welterweight. We've got Sean Strickland, Israel Adesanya, Khamzat Chimaev, Jared Cannonier, and Robert Whitaker. All of these guys who you can arguably say deserve a shot. We need to cut the line down short. Jared Cannonier came off a win over the former champion Sean Strickland. Yes, it was controversial, but he still beat him on paper. And then he goes out there and beats the crap out of Marvin Vettori. And then obviously Robert Whitaker also beat Vettori in 2022, got finished by Dricus, and just got a pretty good win there over Paulo Costa. Let's see these guys rematch, the #1 contender fight, because they both are one fight away from a title shot. I think it'd be a cracking fight, a tough fight for both of them as well, especially for Whitaker. I know he's beaten Cannonier before, but the Cannonier that showed up against Vettori, the killer gorilla, that guy looked insane. So Whitaker versus Cannonier 2. Let's see that fight. #1 contender fight. And then finally the main event. Volkanovski unfortunately got knocked out cold by Ilia Topuria. A very depressing night for most MMA fans. I'm going to say he's got to get an immediate rematch. And I understand that he's now on a 2-fight losing streak by knockout. I don't want to give him the immediate rematch too soon. And to be honest, because he did lose to Islam and he's on a 2-fight losing streak, I guess you can make an argument that he doesn't deserve an immediate rematch. But this guy, again, he's pretty much on the featherweight division. Holloway, Ortega, Rodriguez, Korean Zombie, everyone. Holloway's on this division. Not Holloway. Volkanovski's on this division for the longest time. Ilia Topuria might be the new guy. Ilia Topuria, this undefeated 15-0, might be the new guy. And to be honest, if Topuria can beat Volkanovski in the rematch, that clears him as the best featherweight in the world, obviously. And if Volkanovski can beat Topuria, then that lets him retire on a high note, because I assume he's going to retire after the Topuria fight. I don't want him sticking around any longer. Let's book the rematch. Volkanovski deserves it because of the legacy he had at featherweight. I don't want to see it too soon, though. Maybe towards the end of the year. And yeah, that is me matchmaking every single fighter on the main card. Let me know if you've switched any matchups around. I think these matchups are pretty good in terms of, getting fighters ranked and stylistic fights. So let me know your thoughts on all these fights, and thank you for watching.